our finals, we've got a full year to give away. We'll crown a champion, and then we'll take a little break before Legacy. So a lot of fun in store for us this morning.
We had Justin on camera yesterday evening in the quarterfinal match where he won a very close 2-game match against Zan Saeed.
Yeah, fun match.
Yeah, it was. David Vo was able to avenge his Swiss loss against David Jones, who was playing Mono Red Aggro.
So, of course, as we do get updates in our other match between Fonseca and Arioletto, we will, of course, let you guys know exactly how that's going. But for now, we're going to turn our attention to Uppal and Vo. And a matchup between two, again, two decks that aren't really, what you think of when you think of standard. You think of mono black devotion, mono blue devotion, different takes on rev decks. Nowadays, it's more just blue-white than Esper.
Yeah, I do think that Esper is coming back in part because of a response to green-red monsters and similar decks like Judd monsters. It's a really good time to have Heroes, Downfalls, and Doomblades and Ultimate Prices in your deck. That wasn't necessarily the case pre-Theros or even, pre-Born of the Gods or even early into Born of Gods. But now, with the metagame being established and green-red all over the place, it might be time to move into black.
All right, so Uppal going to take a look here. Looks like he's good to go. Vo, how does he feel about things? You see him analyzing. He knows what he's up against here. And I definitely think I agree with you. I think he's a favorite game one, especially with how much removal he has as opposed to blue-white. He's going to take a mulligan here. So Uppal, again, pleased with his 7. Vo will go down to 6. And yesterday, of course, we had just under 600, so a healthy standard open here in Atlanta.
Yeah, 580-ish,
yeah,
I believe was the number. So very good turnout again, 10 rounds of Swiss. I don't know when the next time is we're going to have a 9-round open, but it might not be for a very, very long time.
For a standard open, I don't think it's going to happen again, honestly.
Might be a fixture of the past.
Yeah, I can't imagine it happening again. I think we're 10 rounds moving forward for the rest of the standard opens, which is sweet. It means a lot of people are enjoying Magic right now, and a lot of people came out this weekend. St. Louis, obviously, last weekend was insane and a ton of fun, so I'm excited to see exactly how many people we do have for Legacy.
David Vo's made a lot of unorthodox selections with his deck. For example, he only has 3 copies of Supreme Verdict in his main deck. That's almost always a 4 of. Yeah. He has 3 copies of Dissension Sphere, again, almost always a 4 of, and he's been in a couple interesting 1-ofs, single Fated Retribution, which we've seen in a variety of control decks at this point, a main deck Ratchet Bomb, so his build's a little more versatile.
He's happy with the 6. The goal head has been given. Justin Uppal. Overgrown 2 untapped. Here comes an Elvish Mystic. And we begin our semifinal round. With a little mana acceleration from Jund Monsters, Vo will draw a Hallowed Fountain for the turn. There's a Temple of Deceit to begin, so it's time to scry for the Esper control player. Going to consult his hand. You see there's a Detention Sphere and a Verdict hanging out over there. Actually, looks like 2 spheres and a Verdict, a couple of lands as well, so not a bad hand.
But this is the type of hand where if Uppal is able to induce the Supreme Verdict and then land Stormbreath Dragon, or even Reaper of the Wilds with mana up to give it hexproof, where he can just run away with the game.
Well, there's a Domri. That's going to tick up. Uppal's going to take a look, and he will pass it back. You see an Obsidian drawn here for Vo. That's a 1 of in his deck to go along with Aetherling to be able to close out games.
Obsidian is another card that feels like a response to green-red monsters.
Absolutely.
It's about, in my mind, the best. If you're going to play a creature to win the game, it's about the best one you could have against green-red.
Yeah. There's another Elvish Mystic here for Uppal. So his Domri's up to 5, working its way towards that ultimate at 7. Pretty long way away, however, as Uppal's going to play a Temple of Abandon. And to consult his hand. His draw last time when he missed with Domri was a Mizium Mortars. It looks like the follow-up is just going to be, we'll see. I thought it may be that Elvish Mystic, but looks like he's got something else to do, and he does. It's a Sylvan Caryatid. And now another copy of Elvish Mystic and passes the turn back. So Vo draws a card. It's a Godless Shrine. Does have white mana, but we'll have to pay for it.
And this opening by Uppal is really leads nicely for David for Detention Sphere into Domri, and then Supreme Verdict away all of these mana creatures.
Yeah, and that's what we're going to see. There's a Detention Sphere on the Planeswalker. Uppal going to untap. He'll take a draw. Did draw another copy of Domri, so that's not so bad, and that's what he's going to get out there. So ticking back up to 4, will the Planeswalker take a look. Storm Breath Dragon in the house. This is kind of what she mentioned as well. There's a Mutavault. Here's an attack for 2. So Vo's going to go down to 16. Storm Breath Dragon, kind of threatening, but Vo's deck, again, because he has black, he's got access to a bunch of removal. Here's Downfall, Far and Away, Devour Flesh, bunch of different stuff to be able to kill that thing.
Yeah.
There's another D-Sphere.
And these attention spears are so important for David right now, as he's continuing to try to put Justin in the rock and a hard place where he needs to continue to advance his board to win the game before something like Obsidat or Sphinx's Revelation takes over. But Supreme Verdict is looming as well. So very good setup for David right now.
Uppal going to come in here for 4. Not going to put any more threats on the board. Mutavault is mighty fine. It's quite a good card. But now I think David might have the opportunity, given what's happened here, to drop an Obsidat. Or we might just see Supreme Verdict. We'll see. It's not the most juicy board to Supreme Verdict, that's for sure.
Yeah, it depends what you suspect Justin's follow-up is. If you think Storm Breath Dragon is something in the cards, then...
Well, he knows it's from Domri, so he knows that's going to be coming. Here is the Verdict. So a 3 for 1. Now, Watery Grave's going to come into play tapped. And we'll cut it back over, see what Uppal's got going. He's got the necessary mana to be able to cast the dragon. And he will, so Vo's going to go down to 8.
And a really critical piece of this puzzle for Justin here is that Mutavault. I think without it, that wouldn't have been enough pressure to induce a Supreme Verdict. And David could have taken his time, but the clock was just a little too fast.
There's a Supreme Verdict. Leaves his Mutavault available to be able to block. Elvish Mystic the draw here for Uppal. Looks like he's got 4 mana spell to cast. Let's see which one. It's a Reaper of the Wilds. Followed up with an Elvish Mystic. Pass it back. Not a bad sequence, as Vo has drawn quite a few lands. He's very, very reliant on that Obsidat to actually get the job done this game. You might have to pay 2 to cast it, however, which is rather unexciting.
Yeah, he also may need to play an additional land on tap here just to be able to block with Mutavault. Although he's tapping the Mutavault, so I suppose that is not in the cards.
And there is the Ghost Council. So Vo's going to go up to 10. Uppal's going to go down to 14. And now Uppal's going to untap. He can take a draw. His Obsidat's going to be blocking now. Reaper, of course, can threaten Death Touch, so that's pretty powerful stuff.
Also, even the Elvish Mystic plus Mizium Mortars in hand is a combo that Justin can use if he decides to block a different way.
Well, here they come. Now, of course, players do have access to deck lists. As a result, Vo knows that Uppal does not have a card like Gorklan Rampager, which would be great here. As Elvish Mystic's going to die, Scryon Reaper is going to take place here from Uppal. He does not like that card, so that goes to the bottom. And as you mentioned, Mizium Mortars, oddly enough, going to get a little bit of use here.
Yeah, this is about as good as Mizium Mortars can really get in this matchup.
Yeah. Doesn't really do much more. I mean, there are times, I suppose, you can get some Elspeth tokens.
Yes, that's the. We're talking pretty low in terms of utility.
Mortars takes care of Obsidat. There's a Scry yet again. Uppal actually going to tap low to play a Courser. There's a Temple. He's going to gain a life, get the Scry. Sylvan Caryatid, probably going to be going towards the bottom in just a moment. And there it goes. Let's see what that top card is. Mizium Mortars. Yuck. The first one was so good. The second one is so bad. Devour Flesh is the draw here from Vo. And oddly enough, I think if you're David, you have to cast that right now.
Yeah, you probably don't want him to be able to untap and then be able to sacrifice Mutavault. Though I think the most likely scenario is that he sacrifices Courser to hedge against a Supreme Verdict off the top. But
sure. Take a draw. There's a Dreadbore. Uppal does have that Mizium Mortars. Here's a D-Flesh. And Uppal says immediately, sacrifice my Mutavault. So Uppal's going to go up to 17. His life total not too relevant. His Dreadbore's going to go to the bottom because Reaper did die. So there's a Domri. Good mechanics. There's Mutavault. Uppal says, I'm going to leave Domri on top. You've got Vo at 4, and he needs a draw now. All of a sudden, his resources have been exhausted. What do we have here? Is this maybe an elixir? All right. That'll keep him alive.
Let's give him another turn.
Pass the turn back. Uppal, he'll take a draw. There's the Domri to the hand. That is a stomping ground. He'll start by attacking. Elixir going to gain 5 life. He goes up to 9, takes 6, goes down to 3. And so Vo will have to top deck the following turn.
And probably for subsequent turns as well.
Yeah,
Because even a Supreme Verdict doesn't really get him out of the woods.
You make a very good point. I think the scariest card right now might be Elspeth, maybe?
Elspeth is very solid, although Justin does have a Mizium Mortars in hand.
Yeah.
It needs to be something like Supreme Verdict into Sphinx's Revelation with Justin missing on Domri for a couple turns.
Okay.
So David is certainly not dead yet, but this is not a good spot to be in.
It's time for maybe a little runner from Vo.
And we talked about this before we went to the match. Justin being able to steal game 1 is critical here because
Yeah.
Gem Monsters is conceding a fairly bad matchup against Control in game 1 and trying to clean that up in post board.
There's the Stomp Heron's going to come and play tapped. Uppal's going to go up to 18. There's another copy Mizium Mortar, so a couple of bricks there. We have a quick update for you guys. Another matchup between Bernardo Fonseca and Nicholas Aristad. Bernardo wins game 1 with just straight mono black. Up a game over Orzhov midrange as Vo draws a card. How do we do on this one? This looks like a spell at least. He's grabbed 4 mana. This could be a verdict.
I'd be surprised if there was any hesitation if it was a verdict, because
That's fair.
you certainly can't say go, so
Yeah.
possibly a Jace. Contemplating what he wants to do here.
You nailed it. Jace Architect of Thought, it's time to minus. There's a Far and Away, a Sphinx's Revelation, and a Temple of Enlightenment. Uppal will split this way. And that's going to do it. So, Justin Uppal does win game number 1 here with Jun Monsters over David Vo playing Esper Control. Those players are going to go to the sideboards. We'll do the same in just a moment, but we're going to bring it back to the booth here, as it is trivia time, my friends. And I've got the question, so I'll let you explain the rules.
So, Cedric is going to ask you a question, usually pertaining to the match we're in the middle of. You will tweet your answer at SCG Live and hashtag SCG Premium. Of the correct answers, one will be chosen at random, and that person will receive 6 free months of Star City Games Premium.
All right, the question for you guys this morning. Within David Vo's deck list, he's got, I guess you could say, 2 creatures. So 2 win conditions. One of those creatures we normally see, that's Aetherling. What is the other creature in the main deck of David Vo's Esper deck? If you can name that, hashtag the answer on Twitter with hashtag SCG Premium. Make sure you're also following at SCG Live as well, and we will select one winner of the people who do get it correct at the conclusion of our semifinal round. Let's take a look at the sideboard, shall we?
Yes, we will.
You want Esper or Jund?
I'll take Esper.
All right,
All right.
fire away.
We got a Ratchet Bomb, 3 Blood Barons of Vizkopa, a Supreme Verdict, a Dispel, 2 Renounce the Guilds, 2 Negates, 4 Thoughtseizes, and a Pithing Needle.
Okay.
I anticipate 2 copies of Renounce the Guilds coming in, very good against Domri and Reaper of the Wilds, 2 cards that caused David quite a bit of headache in game 1. The additional copy of Supreme Verdict I really like here as well. It's possible that he wants to bring in the Negates to fight over Domri and possibly Dreadboard to protect his Planeswalker, so it's a little bit narrow here. And Blood Baron is potentially good if Justin goes ahead and cuts his mortars altogether, but Domri fight also gives Justin a way to fight through it as well. So I do like Renounce the Guilds. I like the additional. I do like the additional Supreme Verdict as well, and the rest of the stuff is kind of fringe. Maybe he wants the Needle to fight over Planeswalkers. Maybe he even wants Thoughtseize because the matchup's a little bit on the slower side.
Take a look at Uppal's sideboard here. He's got an Inspire of Insanity, 2 Abrupt Decays, 3 Golgari Charms, 3 Ultimate Price, a Rurik Thar the Unbowed, 1 Xenagos, God of Revels, 2 Dreadbore, and 2 Rakdos' Return. Even though this matchup is a little bit different because Vo has access to black removal spells, I still think you sideboard the same when playing against this deck. You're going to want the Sire, you're going to want Abrupt Decays, Golgari Charms, Rurik Thar, Xenagos, God of Revels, Dreadbore, and Rakdos Return. So you're going to be boarding in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 cards. Easy cards to sideboard out. Love, obviously, boarding out Mizzy and Mortars. Like boarding out Scavenging Ooze, so that'll be 6. And then you can go ahead and move out. I like moving out Elvish Mystic here because you actually need Sylvan Carrier to be able to reduce your black mana for a lot of your sideboard cards, so you can play 2 black spells in 1 turn. So that'll give you 10. And then Pulakranos is a card that is going to die a high percentage of the time. So that's actually an easy one to sideboard out. Courser's not the best here, but it's I feel like it's better than just the 5/5 that dies a lot.
So even though you're playing against an Esper deck that you know has multiple copies of Devour Flesh and Far Away, you still like to de-emphasize the mana creatures a little bit?
Yeah, I think you have to, just because they get swept away in Verdicts, and you know they're going to be boarding into a 4th one, in addition to the Fated Retribution that's also in the main deck as well. You know, this is a matchup where I've tried leaving an Elvish Mystic so that you can play a turn 2 Courser or a turn 2 Domri, but realistically, especially when you're playing against this version, you know, Domri is going to provide a little bit of an advantage, but it's not going to actually, you know, be the end-all, be-all that you want it to be, especially when the opponent has access to Hero's Downfall and Attention Sphere. So that is how I initially started by boarding out Caryatid, obviously, because it doesn't attack, but I've also run into some games where, you know, if you don't have Caryatid, you have 9 lands that produce black mana with 4 Overrun Tombs, 4 Blood Crypts, and the Temple of Malice. So you're putting a lot of stress on actually drawing the, you know, the 1 black source, and realistically, you want to have the ability to cast 2 black spells in 1 turn.
Yeah. The mana is a little on the strain side.
How dare you?
Well, it's just the nature. I'm not saying that the mana base is poorly constructed, but it is a shade on the greedy side.
It absolutely is, yeah. I would not argue otherwise.
You're not playing the maximum number of dual lands, and there's 2 Mutavaults in the deck, so it's really unfair to say that we're not taking some liberties.
To be fair, Kent Ketter added that 2nd Mutavault. I'm a fan of 1 Mutavault. I am not greedy. Even though Mutavault is great.
It was excellent for Justin that game.
Yeah, it is great.
A really important piece of the puzzle.
But I hate, and anytime I have like a Mutavault in play and I can't cast my spells because I don't have the appropriate colors, that drives me up a wall. So, it obviously worked for Kent. I know Kent just loves a Mutavault in a 2 or 3 color deck. Loves it.
It is one of Standard's most powerful, if not the most powerful card. So,
yeah,
hard to get away from it, especially in an attacking deck.
I'm glad Mutavault's back. I always like Mutavault. Sweet, sweet card. Again, on another match between Orzhov Midrange and Mono Black Devotion. Mono Black Devotion currently up a game here. Bernardo Fonseca did win game number 1 over Nicholas Erstead. So if we do have time to cut over to that match, we certainly will. But we have our attention here on Justin Uppal, who again has not lost a match yet this weekend, playing against David Vo. Jund Monsters, back-to-back 1 seeds. 1 seed in St. Louis for Kent Ketter, 1 seed here for Justin Uppal. Deck is
both players ran through the Swiss round.
Yes, they did. They did. But we'll see if Esper Control, a deck that, again, we have not seen for a little while. We've seen blue-white. We've also seen some players touching in black for maybe a splash of Dark Betrayal. We saw Tana and Grace use that for Doomblade this weekend. But this is full-blown Esper Control, much in the same fashion as Guillaume Wafotapa from Pro Tour Theros.
Yeah. So to your previous point, I don't mind the Mutavault reprint. It's very powerful, but there is some opportunity cost, and you know, it's not the end of the world to have that be one of the best cards in Standard. I do wish it appeared in a Standard format that was a little more tribal-oriented. I feel like it's kind of a not maybe the best timing of the reprint, as you know, there's not really a lot of creature-type matter stuff associated with it. The synergy that comes up is really just Pack Rat.
Sure.
It makes some sense that they reprinted it in the set they did because Slivers was a thing.
Yeah.
So Mutavault plus Slivers that's a cool reprint, but Slivers never really made any sort of impact and constructed, and so Mutavault's just kind of a...
Not yet.
Yeah, not yet.
They haven't made an impact yet. Give them time.
I mean, we see the stray copies of Flying Man Sliver here and there.
Yes, the Gale Rider. Yeah.
In Blue Devotion lists.
For the person who can't quite afford Judge's Familiar.
Yeah.
Even though Gale Rider Sliver is probably more expensive than Judge's Familiar.
Probably not at this point.
I guess, okay. Okay, I could see that.
Judge's Familiar is safely in money uncommon territory.
It has done it.
Congratulations.
You go, Judge's Familiar.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Yeah, it's about the only sliver we ever do see play. Even though I'm hesitant to even call them slivers. They're more mutants or predators.
Yeah.
But that conversation is neither here nor there.
Right. We've already had our complaints about that.
Yeah. For those of you guys who were not with us yesterday as well, Grand Prix Richmond, a tournament that Star City Games is hosting next weekend. We've got over 2,100 pre-registrants. We're looking to break the record before this weekend is over. 2,227 is the record set in 2010 at Grand Prix Madrid as the largest constructed Grand Prix. We want to knock that down before the weekend is over so we can make the announcement live on air. No, we do predict it will get knocked over, within a day or two, but we want to do it on air. And thank everybody for signing up, and can't wait to see everybody there.
Yeah, it's not an issue of if but when the record is getting shattered. We would prefer to be on the broadcast today, but if it's not happening today, it'll be happening tomorrow or Tuesday.
Yeah. Behind David Yo, you do see Chi Hoi Yim, player who has had a lot of Open Series success, multiple Open Series wins, invitational top 8 in this building 2 years ago. Very, very skilled legacy player.
Any particular deck that he's known for, or a sampler?
A sampler. I don't oftentimes see him with a Taiga in play.
Okay.
Or excuse me, a Tundra, not a Taiga,
Oh.
a Tundra. That is way different. See, a Temple of Silence. And he loves a blue card. Here's a Temple of Abandon from Uppal. He's going to leave his card on top, pass that turn back. One of the key things here, as we do see this game progress, is just to see if Uppal does have black mana, because he has so many sideboard cards that require black mana. As Vo's going to leave his card on top. Does have a Renounce the Guilds in his hand right now, does David. Uppal with a Rurik Thar, among others. Looks like he may have a Blood Crypt over there as he's looking to figure out how to progress things. Just going to play Blood Crypt tapped and pass. Vo will take a draw. Temple of Deceit is what he'll play. All 3 temples to start the game. A little scrying action.
So how do you like this start for Justin? Not much has happened, of course, but just being on the draw and making land drops, not accelerating, but with a lot of power in hand.
Fine with it. It's going to be a long matchup. You don't kill him. You don't kill him very quickly. As here's Domri. You just kind of grind out their resources. There's a Reaper. As we do find out, Bernardo Fonseca will be playing in the finals. Mono Black Devotion takes care of Black, White, Orzhov Midrange, whatever you want to call it. And it's on its way to the finals. Packrack and company are back. And they'll be playing the winner of this match, as Renounce the Guilds did take care of Domri after Domri did find a Reaper of the Wilds. Vo going to play Hallowed Fountain untapped. Looks like we may see Jace come down here. And we do. And it's going to minus. Here's an Elixir. There's a Supreme Verdict, and there's a Hallowed Fountain. Time for Uppal to split a pretty good Jace.
And Jace on the empty board is exactly where an Esper control player wants to be.
Oh, yeah. He's going to scoop up Elixir and the Hallowed Fountain. Maybe signifying that he needs that land pretty badly and doesn't mind adding Elixir to it as well. Uppal will take a draw, draws another copy of Reaper of the Wilds. Let's see if he has a 4th land. That's mighty important here. And he does. It's a forest. And that is a Reaper of the Wilds. Vo will untap. He will take a draw. It's an Aetherling, so he has found a win condition here quite early in the game.
Yeah, and his hand appears to allow him kind of to go pretty fast into Aetherling here. He's got some removal and some counter spells.
It's a pretty fast hand.
Yeah.
And it's a pretty strong hand too. You see him pull forward that Hero's Downfall. Looks like he wants to take care of Reaper now.
Yeah, Reaper is fairly annoying as it forces David's hand. I'm sure he would be interested in just leaving up Dissolve and Hero's Downfall mana to protect himself a little bit against something like Stormbreath Dragon. But because Reaper has the ability to get hexproof, it sort of forces David to act now.
And there is Reaper budding the dust from Hero's Downfall. No scry, as with Reaper, it's everything but itself that you get to scry from, as Uppal draws a Courser of Crewfix for the turn. Does have Blood Crypt as well. That's going to come into play on tap. Maybe it's Dragon time? It is. Let's see where Dragon's going. It's going to take down Jace, so a useful turn there from Uppal, as he does take 2. Don't forget, he does have that copy of Rurik Thar in his hand. We don't know if he has a 6th land or not. Also don't know if there's a 1 of Sire Insanity as well. So there are definitely some haymakers that Vo has to be very cognizant of.
You see David electing last turn to use Hero's Downfall instead of Detention Sphere on that Reaper. And now with Detention Sphere in hand, facing down Stormbreath Dragon instead of Hero's Downfall. There is a risk, of course, of, Justin just has an Abrupt Decay or a Golgari Charm, and, it's not strictly a mistake, but certainly Justin having a follow-up Stormbreath Dragon is punishing David for the line that he took.
So just a land there from Vo, passes the turn back. Uppal will take a draw. He starts by attacking. Vo gonna take 4. Let's see what Uppal's follow-up is gonna be. 3 mana. You see him carefully leaving up 2 mana. That 2 mana represents a bevy of things. And that's a Courser of Crufix. Will Vo dissolve that? He does not. So there's a Reaper. Pass the turn back. Just a baby rev for 2, as Vo's going to go up to 16.
Yeah, I like this from David as he's trying to get into a spot where he can play Supreme Verdict and still have some sort of backup or protection.
Yeah.
He probably doesn't have enough time to get to that plus dissolve, but he may be able to get to that plus Thoughtseize, for example, which gives him some protection and some setup.
That is a nice turn. And you see Uppal did have the Sire of Insanity. His hand is stock loaded. Rurik Thar, Sire of Insanity, Courser, and Reaper of the Wilds.
Now, fortunately for David, he knows that there is not a 6th land coming on top.
Able to dodge that bullet. What do you take with the Thoughtseize, though? That's tough.
Probably. So next turn, Justin will play Reaper, presumably. I guess I would take one of the 6-mana creatures. They're both so bad, though. I don't know if one's worse than the other.
Yeah. Looks like he's leaning towards Sire.
But David's actually got a pretty good setup here. If Justin presumably next turn only plays a Reaper, David can untap, pass with Dissolve mana up. If Justin doesn't do anything impactful, he can Revelations again and start pulling ahead in the game in terms of cards.
That he can. Thoughtseize, nice card here from David.
Yep.
As he's playing with some useful information now. It's scary to know that those are the things that are coming, but he's going to take Rurik Thar. He'll take 2 to do so. So Reaper, Sire, and Courser are going to go to the hand. You see David pull the Supreme Verdict to the front. He's going to cast that. Take care of those 2 creatures. There's an Elixir, so he uses all of his mana this turn.
That was a great turn for David.
I'm inclined to agree, as Uppal will take a draw here. Again, hand is double Reaper, Sire of Insanity, and Courser of Crufix. Uppal going to go with a Reaper and simply pass the turn back to Vo. Vo, with his 6 mana, takes the draw. Detention Sphere there. You see his hand. He's got a Rev. He's got Dissolve. He's got Aetherling as well. A lot of options. As you mentioned, we could just see a Detention Sphere Dissolve play this turn.
I think David would ideally like to wait a little bit longer before deploying that Revelations. Maybe make one more land drop and to get an opportunity to Detention Sphere here while Uppal is without Hexproof mana, a really good spot.
Uppal draws Stomping Ground. He's going to go with a Courser. There's a Golgari Charm. He'll play Stomping Ground tapped, gain a life, and just pass the turn back. Doesn't want to play Reaper, it feels like, without access to the 2 mana.
Nor did he just want to run his 6-mana creature out there as well.
Yeah. Elixir is going to be sacrificed. It's time to shuffle everything back in. So Vo will go up to 19.
And this shows some of the risk. As good as the Jund Monsters tools are, you know, it's all the cards that go Golgari Charms, the 6-mana creatures, these are all powerful cards. You're seeing some of the risk of trying to just outgrind Esper because Sphinx's Revelation is much more powerful than your control tools.
Yeah.
So you need to have a mixture. You know, you want to have some of this kind of stuff, but it needs to be supplemented by real pressure.
So you see Vo's hand yet again right now. He's got that Sphere, he's got Aetherling, he's got a Revelation, and he has a Dissolve. See if he can find a land. Looks like he found maybe, I believe that was Fated Retribution.
Yes. Another very powerful card to have access to right now.
Charm goes to Uppal's hand. There's a Forest. He's going to put that directly into play. Gain a life, go to 20. Both players at very high life totals, as there's an Elvish Mystic. Uppal going to play Reaper of the Wilds. Attack here for 2. I think we might see Revelation now. Yep, that's what we're going to find, even though it's a small one.
Yeah. If Justin isn't really willing to play anything that major into the Dissolve there, David's happy just to Rev instead.
Yeah. So he finds 3 new cards. Looks like a Supreme Verdict was among them. There's a Renounce the Guilds as well. All good stuff here from Vo.
Renounce is a really nice tool that David has in this matchup that a lot of Esper and Blue-White lists do not have. Part of the issue is the overlap with Detention Sphere, and you're seeing that awkwardness right now.
Here's the 4 mana. There's Verdict. I'll probably say Golgari Charm here for regeneration. So that does resolve. Vo basically using that Verdict to get Sphere out of the hand and maybe bait Uppal into casting Sire of Insanity, potentially. There's an Overgrown 2. That's going to come into play tapped. Uppal going to gain a life, go to 21. Take a draw, Sylvan Caryatid. Bash you for 6. Put Vo down to 12. Uppal going to go for Sire of Insanity. A little bit risky. I think he could have played the Overgrown Tomb untapped. Now he's opened himself up to getting his Reaper Detention Sphere or something else, when his life total is quite high. There's Elvish Mystic.
David did a really good job of sequencing here.
You see Faded Retribution on the screen. We got a feeling that that might be cast momentarily.
I suspect Uppal felt that if David had, you know, if he had the ability to fight over that Golgari Charm, he just would have.
Sure. He's going to take the Aetherling route. Gets the creature deployed with a single blue mana up. I guess knowing Sylvan Caryatid coming, not too threatening.
The information Courser providing David pretty valuable there.
Yep, there's Golgari Charm. Attack here, which is the Reaper. Block with the Ling. Give Death Touch. Vo says, I'll blink it out for now, thank you much. Here comes a Caryatid. So it looks like Uppal's left in a lot of mana acceleration.
Yes. You had to wonder where he made room for all of this.
Yeah, I believe he's probably cut Pulachronos.
But you were talking like there's about 10 cards he wants to bring in.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of cards he wants to bring in. Obviously, Mortars is out of his deck. He probably... I wouldn't be surprised if he just chopped all of the copies of Pulachronos and then some number of Coursers. Again, I don't think that Pulachronos is great in this matchup by any stretch, but just having another card that they have to answer, I think is very important, because Elvish Mystic and Sylvan Caryatid, they just don't really matter.
Yeah.
You know?
Although you do see David with multiple copies of Far Away in his hand, so they are providing some defense there.
This is true. Gonna blink out the Aetherling. And David's hand is absolutely loaded right now.
Yeah. So much spot removal.
Yeah.
This is one of the benefits, again, of moving into black instead of just having a pure blue-white list. Thoughtseize was also critical this game, too, I feel like. The black cards have been working overtime for David thus far.
Uppal going to draw his copy of Golgari Charm. There's a Temple of Abandon. That's going to come into play. Show you Courser as he moves up a little bit of life. He's going to scry that to the bottom, so let's see what he finds on the top. Dreadbore. It's a way to clear Aetherling out of the way momentarily. That's about it.
Yeah. I don't think Uppal has a lot of great draws left in the deck in the face of this Aetherling.
Yeah, I think the best draw that he has available is Rakdos' Return. I think that's the one card that he is looking for to get himself back into this game as he serves in with everybody. Looks like we're going to see Hero's Downfall get cast here. Maybe the away half of Far and Away. Yep. He says, I don't need this Sylvan Caryatid. That goes away.
Not surprising to see Caryatid down.
Yeah, Dreadbore going to go to the bottom from Reaper. There's a Stormbreath Dragon. Aetherling on blocking duty. Uppal says, give my Reaper Death Touch. Aetherling going to blink out. Take 3, put Vo down to 9. Uppal working his way through it. Does have Golgari Charm up, too. Elspeth the draw.
Not really clear even if Elspeth is something that David has time for in this spot.
Yeah. Vo's just a little bottlenecked on mana, honestly.
Yeah.
That's the big issue here.
Which is odd to say as 7 in play, you know?
Yeah. This feels like a situation where he wants 10. Here comes the Ling. See how much Vo wants to attack for. Aetherling management is very key right now.
Yeah, David trying to find the right balance of leaving himself the mana to do everything that he wants to do while shortening the game as much as possible.
Uppal sitting at 17. You know, the life that's being gained from a Courser may not seem like it's too relevant, but you know that Aetheling can close a game out very quickly, so.
Yeah, this might translate into an additional turn or even turns for Justin.
Gonna blink out Aetherling. Let's see what else Vo wants to do this turn. Nothing, just says Aetherling comes back potentially. I think he's gonna use Gary Charm to get that Reaper back from the Detention Sphere. Potentially. Yeah, and he says that's fine. Yep. So now he's gonna cast a Charm, get that back. That's gonna turn on the Renounce the Guilt, of course. A card that was off before.
Sort of awkwardly off before.
Yeah, yeah. Turns on Fated Retribution too. There's a dragon. There's a Dreadbore. There's a dragon. So Uppal says, everybody in.
They can't block, so they gotta attack.
That's true. All right, so here's some mana. You see Vo is separating things. 2 mana. Looks like the guilds may be renounced momentarily. They are. So bye-bye Reaper. Time to scry once from the other Reaper. Top card is a Sylvan Caryatid. This is a hero's downfall. Time to scry that to the bottom. Top card is a Blood Crypt. Aetherling going to get in front of Courser. I have a feeling Blood Crypt's going to go to the bottom, and Uppal does not have to reveal his top card. So he's going to deal 5. He's going to put Vo down to 4. Grinding away is the youngster.
Though David has gotten to a spot where he's whittled down Justin's board enough where Far and Away is becoming a potential haymaker.
Yes, yes it is. Again, you see his hand. He's still got plenty of options. He just needs lands. There's a Temple. Take a look at the top card. Again, Vo does have D-Sphere, Far and Away, Fated Retribution in the hand. All quality options. Last card, of course, is Elspeth. Here comes Aetherling. Just trying to balance that life total. And these Aetherling activations and that, oddly enough, little amounts of mana that he has.
Relative to the spells in his hand, he has very little mana.
If Rakdos' Return comes rolling off the top here for Uppal, it's going to be lights out. He's got 2 to draw to. Some of his better sideboard cards look to be gone right now. A card like Rurik Thar, Sire of Insanity, those are both long gone. Abrupt Decay and Golgari Charm, not great in this situation now. Good previously. Xenagos, God of Revels, meh, not too good right now either.
No, David's trying to set this up, I would imagine, for a kill in one shot, although he's actually knocked Uppal down to
just 9. A little surprised by that.
Yeah.
I was with you. I thought he would try to get him down to 8 in one shot. This extra turn may end up costing him as Uppal's going to untap. He's going to take a draw. Looked like a spell. Red zone. We might see a fused Far and Away here, yeah. He says bounce that, make you sacrifice that. So Elvish Mystic goes to the hand. That goes to the graveyard. That is a Pool of Chronos and Elvish Mystic and passing the turn back.
And Pool of Chronos, a card you specifically called out as a card you do not like in this matchup.
Yeah, decidedly mediocre. Just a big 5/5 dummy that's likely going to die to some sort of removal spell, but you got to keep them honest. They don't have an answer. It will kill you quick. Looks like Vo has a D-Sphere here.
And you're seeing Pool of Chronos be decidedly mediocre right now.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Now, for Uppal, because most of his searching can be taken care of here, and Aetherling's going to get into some damage from Vo as Vo decides how he wants to play this turn. He does have some outs. I think it has to be, I think he's going to get one more draw step. And I believe those outs right now are Stormbreath Dragon along with Rakdos' Return.
Yeah.
for him to take this one.
David could try to play the game in such a way where he doesn't die to Stormbreath Dragon by leaving up Fated Retribution.
Sure.
But it's a lot of contortions given how much mana he has in play to do that.
Yeah.
Right in his spot, I think I would just say, all right, Stormbreath Dragon beats me here.
Sure.
And just try to win the game.
There's your D-Sphere. Looks like Ling is going unblockable. Get you. It'll be for just 4. And again, if David may have missed a point in the previous turn. That's going to come out. That's going to come in. Let's see what Uppal finds. It's a stomping ground. That is going to do it. Let's move to a third one, shall we?
Yeah, it's not necessarily a straight mistake there, as had David got in for an additional point of damage, it would have tapped him out the way that he used the rest of his mana. Sure. So then he's exposing his Aetherling to Dreadbore or something else there. Again, it's this dance of, the walking the tightrope of how many turns do you want to give versus how many cards you want to play around there. David generally seemed to err on the side of playing around things and giving extra turns, and was rewarded for that sequence that game.
When you're playing against blue-white, I actually like boarding in a bunch of Dreadbores because it takes care of Jace, takes care of Elspeth. A lot of blue-white decks have moved towards 3 copies of Elspeth. Elspeth can obviously be problematic against the monsters deck, and that's why I advocate boarding in 4 copies of Dreadbore. Given the composition of David's deck, I think 4 Dreadbores is too many, and I think he might want to, if you're Uppal, maybe slice down a couple of those. Seemed like he was a bit Dreadbore heavy there.
Yeah, and again, we're still trying to figure out where exactly Justin made changes to the deck. We talked about mana acceleration being a thing you may want to sideboard out. Justin had a lot of it. Polychronos was a card you assume would be maybe the first card out even, and we saw it appear in that second game. So.
Yeah.
We are still somewhat in the dark on exactly how Justin configured his deck there.
Well, don't forget, my friends, winner of this match plays against Bernardo Fonseca. Mono Black Devotion's in the finals. We haven't seen it for a little while, it feels like, but it's back.
Yeah. I think his removal suite seems very well situated for this tournament.
Yeah, he got the 2 Devour Flesh, 2 Ultimate Price, 2 Bob Lights, and then 4 Heroes Downfalls. Also has Lifebane Zombie in the main deck, along with 4 copies of Pack Rat, Desecration Demon, and Grey Merchant.
So some valuable adaptation got done.
Yeah, even has 1 Nykthos hiding out in there. Like it. We'll see Bernardo shortly. But he'll be playing the winner of this match between Jund Monsters and Esper Control.
It's possible 1 copy of Nykthos is a little bit easier to rationalize now that there is no Night Veil Spectre in the deck.
Yeah.
So you don't, Night Veil Spectre is this very powerful incentive to not add colorless lands to the deck. I don't know how much work Nykthos does in the scheme of things because it's not a deck that has a lot to do with mana sinks. Mono Blue Devotion, for example, with its 1 Nykthos, well, it has Thassa. Anytime you have Nykthos plus Thassa, you probably have a lot of permanents in play, so it's very natural to want a lot of mana in that scenario. Mono Black Devotion doesn't really have any sort of analog like that. It does have Erebos in the sideboard, but Erebos is not a card you want to be activating 5 times in a turn, unlike Thassa
Unless you're really feeling it.
Yeah. I'm not saying it's impossible, it's just not. Activating Thassa 5 times in a turn, that's something I can easily imagine wanting to do. Activating Erebos 5 times in a turn, that's harder to imagine.
If you activate Erebos 5 times in a turn, you're probably winning. I would hope.
Yeah. Or you're causing yourself to now lose.
Yeah.
It's one of the 2.
Yeah, for sure. So Uppal will be on the play for this 3rd and final game. And maybe a little bit faster start this go around. It makes cards like, if you're able to have a faster start and then have some reactive cards like Decay and Charm, it makes those cards better if you're pressuring your opponent a little bit and then doing those things. But Vo is very good at reacting to aggressive starts because he does have a bunch of spot removal in his deck, and even a card like Renounce the Guilds as well, which, again, that's a card we haven't seen a ton of because it doesn't interact favorably with Detention Sphere, but it is powerful.
Yeah, when we first started working on block constructed decks for the Pro Tour, Ben Lundquist, who's a coworker of mine, said, I want to build a blue-white deck with just a bunch of counter spells and not play Detention Sphere and just play Renounce the Guilds. And we worked on that deck for a little while, didn't really get anywhere, but then Andres Prost actually top forward with a very similar build.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough to cut Detention Sphere because it's so powerful. And also, on the flip side of things, it's so powerful, but people are gunning for it, too.
Yeah.
Because they know that's your go-to removal spell.
But not having to tap out as often is a really big deal for control decks.
Yeah, and obviously I know Benny quite well, as do you. Benny loves a good counterspell.
Oh, yeah.
He never wants to tap his mana on his main phase. So that doesn't surprise me that he got to work on that style of deck.
But Renounce the Guilds was a card he immediately identified as this card is going to be significant in block and potentially standard as well. Hasn't really shaped up that way in standard, and I think a lot of that just has to do with 4 detention spheres being a thing that a lot of players don't even question. And David's gone down to 3 detention spheres in his list. I wonder if some of that is a concession to the fact that he has Renounced the Guilds in the sideboard.
Yeah. If you guys are just joining us at home, Cedric Phillips, Patrick Sullivan, Star City Games Open Series is here in Atlanta. We are on the 3rd and final game of our semifinals. We already have one winner in Bernardo Fonseca with Mono Black Devotion. We'll be playing the winner here between Justin Uppal and David Vo. John Monsters, Asper Control will be beginning shortly. At SCG Live, hashtag SCGATL for your tweets. We've already asked our premium question here for 6 months. So we'll be announcing the winner at the conclusion of this 3rd and final game. And don't forget, we do have the full year to give away in the finals. Before we crown champion there, head over to the sideboard with Nick Miller for the winner's interview. And then legacy action later today.
Got a lot lined up.
Yeah, it's going to be a long one. But it should be fun, as Vo is going to take a mulligan here. He'll be going down to 6, as we did see in the first game. Uppal happy enough with his starting 7. Justin Uppal, your #1 seed, has not lost this weekend. Started off 8-0, tried to draw around 9. Opponent said no thank you. Beat him anyway. And then was able to draw the last round to lock up the #1 seed and the ability to play first in every elimination round, which is a powerful spot to be in. Yeah. Trust me.
And I actually like the way that David's deck is set up in some senses against Jund Monsters, because counter spells are powerful against Jund Monsters after board. You know, they have Rakdos Return and these really powerful 6-mana creatures, so your dissolves get better. It's nice to be able to keep your mana up, and Detention Sphere gets a lot worse in the face of Abrupt Decay and Golgari Charm. So I think that if I was playing the matchup, I would actually want to have a lot of copies of Renounce the Guilds and maybe no Detention Spheres altogether, and just try to sit back on your heels, play a totally passive game, and try to win with Revelation. Because tapping out is so dangerous against Jund Monsters. You're looking at Stormbreath Dragon, Domri, Sire of Insanity, Rorthar, there's Rakdos Return.
Yeah.
All these cards that are so bad if Justin happens to have them. So just playing a more controlling game plan makes a lot of sense.
Temple of Silence here, as you saw Vo did draw Thoughtseize for the turn. So I got a feeling we're going to find out what Uppal has momentarily. Draws a Domri for the turn. Play a Blood Crypt untapped. Probably going to see Sylvan Caryatid here. We are. So a little bit of mana acceleration coming here as Vo will untap that Temple of Silence. He'll draw a Temple of Deceit. And he's going to fire off a Thoughtseize. So Uppal's hand. There's a Dreadbore, 2 copies of Domri, and a couple of lands. So he's got a very large reliance on those Planeswalkers this game.
Yeah. A fairly durable hand against Thoughtseize here, as he has a redundant Planeswalker and a Dreadbore that may or may not even matter.
And as they say, you do get to draw a card every turn.
It is true.
So anything can happen. Vo going to go down to 18 to take that Domri and get the information on what's Uppal's hand. Now he's going to play his Temple of Deceit. Take a look. He's happy with what he sees, and Uppal will untap, take a draw. That's a Xenagos, God of Revels. That's a good one. There's Domri.
Another excellent Renounce the Guilds.
I suppose that's true. Actually. There's a Stomping Ground. Pass the turn back. Vo will draw. There's a Renounce the Guilds. Good call, Patrick. Good call.
Renounce is really good against these decks.
Yeah, it really, really is. There's Nylon. Pass the turn back. Uppal will take a draw. It's another land. Stomping Ground's going to come into play untapped. Uppal not giving away any information. The lands in his hand are currently a mystery. And there is Xenagos, God of Revels. As Vo will draw a card. It's a Revelation. Does he have a land? The answer is no.
And this puts David, of course, under a ton of pressure, as every creature Justin draws now is a significant threat.
And with those sacrifice effects in Vo's hand, you see the Far Away and Devour Flesh. Sylvan Caryatid will be going to the graveyard sooner rather than later, I think. And it looks like we may see a way right now.
Yeah, this is, a little on the mopey side for David, but these edicts aren't getting any better,
He's going to use Devour Flesh this turn. I'm in favor of a way this turn if you're going to use one of those effects, simply because you use all of your mana that way.
Well, it's possible if David draws back-to-back lands that he can Supreme Verdict on a turn and then fuse Far Away down the line.
Sure.
It's close. I agree with you. I think it's a pretty close decision.
There's a Watery Grave after Uppal did play a Temple of Abandon. Watery Grave's going to come to play untapped. Let's see what Vo has here as he does take 2. You see Verdict, Revelation far and away, so you might see maybe a Baby Rev. You see Dreadbore drawn there for Uppal. Gonna play Overground Tomb tap, pass the turn. Baby Rev it is. Just for 1.
And you mentioned you didn't like to have, the full suite of Dreadbores.
Given the config of David's deck, as opposed to normal blue-white, where we see blue-white decks, sometimes boarding a card like Archangel of Thune and stuff like that. Yeah, I mean, the creature that he's boarding in is Blood Baron. Assuming that he even boarded in this matchup, yeah, I don't love that. I don't love having a ton of Dreadbores here. Now, maybe he only has 2 in his deck, and he's just happened to draw 2, but...
We saw a lot of them via Courser Scries last game, too, so...
Justin drawing another land. Just passes the turn back here. Vo will take a draw. He draws an Elspeth. Things could get ugly. Though Dreadbore will be helpful. Uppal draws another land. Passes the turn back. Vo draws an island. He's got Elspeth at the ready. Will he tap out to cast it?
This feels like a pretty good spot. It's almost impossible that Justin's just sitting with creatures in hand. He would have just been casting them, most likely.
I mean, a situation could arise where, a Rakdos' return for 4 kills or Rakdos' return for 5 because Uppal has a land. But obviously, Vo doesn't know that. But a big Rakdos return can take care of Elspeth and the entire hand, things of that nature. As Uppal draws, I believe, an Elvish Mystic, which is better than nothing.
But not by much.
Yeah. And then it goes to going to target that. And in comes for 2, does the Mystic. Pass the turn back. And it is my belief that David probably thinks that Justin just has a lot of reactive cards in his hand. Like Abrupt Decay, Great Charm, things of that nature. When, in reality, Justin doesn't really have very much at all. Attack here for 2 yet again. And now Vo can actually cast away because he has Dissolve in his hand.
Yeah, and that Dissolve's a huge draw for David.
Yeah.
Now he can take a lot more time because he has Insurance against Rakdos Return or one of the good 6-mana creatures showing up.
There's a Scry from Temple of Enlightenment. I can leave that card on top. Uppal will draw. It's a Rakdos' return. Will he fire off the big X spell? There's a forest.
I don't know what else his hand permits him to do because he's now facing down the threat of Sphinx's Revelation at a moment's notice. I feel like he can't afford to wait.
I agree with you, and that will take care. That Dissolve will take care of it. Vo says, "I'm going to leave that card on top." Pass the turn back. There's a Temple. That card's going to go to the bottom. Will Vo cast Elspeth now?
I mean, if he's trying to get to the point where he's playing Elspeth with far/away backup, we might be waiting a while here. I guess it's only 1 more land.
Yeah.
If he untaps and plays a land, then he has 9 mana total.
I'll just pass it back.
So he's just going to continue to sit on his heels here.
Uppal draws another land. It's a forest. Passes back to Vo. Vo will take a draw. It's a Hallowed Fountain. So that's the 9th land, if that's what Vo is trying to accomplish.
Yeah.
But he's just going to play a tap, so that's not the goal.
Still looks like he's debating this.
Yeah. Some very interesting back and forth here. There's Elspeth. All right. You see, he was probably debating leaving up far and away yet again, as Uppal's going to take a draw here. I believe that may have been Rurik Thar, Patrick.
I mean, if that's Rurik Thar, that's a huge draw here.
3 soldier tokens incoming. There's Dreadbore.
Oh,
I think this is Rakdos' return instead. This has got to be Rakdos' return, right? Yep. There's the grip.
So that's a huge swing there for Justin, especially getting that far away out of the hand. The Supreme Verdicts are, they are fine, but certainly not as good in the face of Xenagos, but losing that far away is huge.
Let's play off the top of our deck, shall we? For both players.
Justin, I feel, is a pretty large favorite from here. David has the best draw of all in Sphinx's Revelation.
Uh-huh. Looks like that might be a land in David's hand. Maybe not. What's this? That's a D-sphere.
That's a huge draw.
That's a big draw.
That gives him a lot more breathing room.
Let's start the back and forth. Let's see what Uppal finds. It is time for some big draws from both players. Justin takes a draw. Courser of Crewfix to start. There's an Elvish Mystic. Yuck. Pass the turn back. Vo, what do you find? He reaches for his mana immediately. Maybe Elixir? All right. That'll keep his head above water.
Yep.
Uppal untaps. We know he's drawing Elvish Mystic. Let's see what next turn will be. Oh, there's Overgrown Tomb. Go up 1, up to 17. Of course, you're going to make it so he draws gas for a long time, like that card.
Storm Breath, the first really big draw for anyone here.
There's a Dreadborn, a token. I don't love that because there's another Elspeth and Jace's.
This feels a little early. It's not even really freeing up an attack.
Yeah, I don't love that use of Dreadbore at all. We'll see if it ends up, you know, hurting him, but that felt very, very hasty.
It would be one thing if David had 4 tokens in play and it was, you know, I'm going to free up my Courser to start attacking here, but David only had the 3.
Yeah, that felt mighty hasty. If an Elspeth or a Jace comes rolling off the top, it's going to be bad news for Uppal right away.
I don't even know what the incentive would be to have do.
Yeah, I don't quite understand the play either, honestly. Maybe just, you know, burning a hole in his hand. You know, even you know, targeting an Aetherlink can free up an attack. Like, there's a lot of different things that Dreadbore can do in this situation. But we'll see if it comes back to hurt him or not, as Vo is going to obviously cycle back in with Elixir, draw a card. This is an Aetherlink.
That's one of David's big draws.
Things get interesting. Things get interesting now. Now, of course, Uppal does have Stormbreath Dragon. It can close the game out faster than Aetherlink can. There's Overgrown Tomb. Uppal looking to see if he can play Dragon and Monstrosity at the same turn. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, he can. He's drawn that many lands. Let's get him to play tapped. He's going to go up to 18. There's a Temple. There's the Dragon. 4 and 5. And he can Monstrosity as well, so he's going to attack for 7. So this all of a sudden turned into a top deck from David Yo, or he is dead as he takes 7 right now.
And remember, this is a black build, so he still has cards like Hero's Downfall. But it's do or die right now.
See Uppal with his fingers crossed, hoping Stormbreath can get it done. Aetherlink looks like something is being activated. Unblockable, attack for 4. Uppal, gonna go down to 14. Vo, maybe gonna make it a little bit more damage, we'll see. This seems like a man who drew something this turn, Patrick.
Yeah, this would be one, if this is just a land in his hand, this is one mighty fine sweat that he's putting Justin through. Oh. He's sort of tapping like this is Supreme Verdict.
Yeah, that's what it feels like. So he's gonna deal this damage. I think he's gonna blink. I think this is Supreme Verdict.
My.
I'll blink it out. Okay, what is it? I'm with you. I thought it was Verdict too.
Could simply be Hero's Downfall.
Okay. Uppal, he'll take a draw. There's the Temple. Top card's an Overgrown Tomb. I think you just play the Tomb here, right?
It effectively is a Scry as well, so you just hold the land in your hand.
There's a Blood Crypt. This is an attack. That's a Hero's Downfall.
Wow.
Had to have it that turn, and he did. Vo will take a draw.
And he knows the top card of Justin's deck is nothing.
Attack. 1, 2. 3. He's got to be correct. Okay, so he attacks her for 7, puts Uppal down to 5.
I mean, Uppal is just his.
I think he's just drawing dead, right?
His goose is cooked. We know there's a Blood Crypt
Yeah,
on top.
that's it.
Wow.
David Vo with an impressive top deck of Hero's Downfall takes a deep breath, and he is moving on to the finals. Esper Control moving on against Mono Black Devotion.
That was a really close game 3.
Yeah.
To say the very least. And again, this is a place where Esper has some outs that Blue-White Control doesn't.
Yep.
Hero's Downfall, of course, not a card you can cast in your Blue-White deck, was critical in killing that Storm Breath Dragon the turn before David was about to die. So we've seen a lot of Blue-White Control over the last couple months, far less Esper control. But